Hello and welcome back. You're listening to Unreliable Sources, your bi-weekly briefing for mystery lovers, thriller junkies, and suspense addicts. I'm Mike Donohue, thriller author and crime fiction fan. Let's get into it. Before we dive into this week's episode, it's still only episode 2, so here's a quick reminder of what this podcast is all about. Every other week, Unreliable Sources drops a fast, focused dispatch from the darker side of storytelling, bringing you mystery and thriller news, some adaptation buzz, some author and book picks, the occasional interview, and deep dives into the weird and wonderful corners of this genre. If you like smart recommendations, hot takes, and a little friendly obsessions over all things twisty and suspenseful, you're in the right place. Episodes are quick, they're short, 10 to 15 minutes tops, just enough time for a coffee or a cover-up. Let's kick things off with some headlines from the Crime Beat. Spotify continues to make a push for audibles thrown in audiobooks. Premium users in the US already get 15 hours free with their subscription, something I take advantage of just about every month. The catalog is pretty good, especially with new releases. Now they are expanding. This is a test outside of the United States and various other countries with a couple of additional tiers. This will likely come to the US as successful, I assume. They offer 2 additional options, like I said. 15 hours on top of your base plan, I guess similar to what you get now in the US, but for a fee. And then a similar variation for family plan members where you can also get 15 additional hours for a fee. And then they also, looks like they have 10-hour blocks that you can buy. I hope they simplify these things a bit more. Audible does have them there. It's just like 1 credit, 1 book. All right, moving on. Joe Hill fans, clear your calendar around Halloween. King's Sorrow is coming. The latest tome from Hill, it clocks in at just under 1,000 pages, is his longest yet. And Barnes & Noble, bn.com, has an exclusive excerpt, and early readers and reviews are buzzing that it continues the Hill and maybe the entire King family trend of successfully pushing ordinary people into extraordinary darkness. If you want that excerpt, I'll throw the link in the show notes. On the adaptation front, Madison Lintz, formerly of Bosch, she was the actress that played Titus Welliver's daughter on the Prime series, will again pick up the LAPD shield, playing Detective Eve Ronin in a new series based on Lee Goldberg's series of crime novels. No word yet on when that will be out. Finally, on a somber note, Martin Cruz Smith passed away a few weeks ago. Best known for the Arkady Renko crime fiction series, Smith's final book stated that it would be his last. But I think many of us still have that hope that there might be a few more. That does not look like it will happen now. He will be missed. All right, let's check out a few new and notable titles hitting shelves or hitting shelves soon. First up, Florida Palms by Joe Pan. Gritty and strange in the best way, reviews have been positive for this debut of panhandle noir that follows 2 teenagers that quickly get in way over their heads. Or do they? Next, Pariah by Dan Fesperman. Cold War intrigue meets moral ambiguity in this spy novel. I don't think anyone is going to unseat Mick Herron on my personal espionage spy novel Mount Rushmore, the modern edition at least. But Fesperman, along with maybe Charles Cumming and Olin Steinhauer, would rank pretty high up there behind Herron. Next, The Bewitching by Silvia Moreno Garcia. Moreno Garcia continues her genre hopping, this time taking on witches and gothic chills as a graduate student stumbles into a haunting conspiracy when researching her PhD. A very visual and descriptive writer, Moreno Garcia just has never totally clicked for me. I've tried a couple of her books, the blurbs, the descriptions of the books always sound so intriguing and great. But similar to Liz Moore's books, I just always struggle with the pacing. The literary aspects often outweigh the thriller aspects. I think I'm in the minority here as she continues to climb the bestseller list since Mexican Gothic. This one looks to continue the trend, so if you are into Silvia Moreno Garcia's books, check this one out. Finally, Just a quick mention for the double feature Killer on the Road and The Babysitter by Stephen Graham Jones. I mention this mostly because I just love the packaging. I know Graham Jones has emerged as a hugely popular horror writer in recent years, but this packaging looks great. It reminds me of, remember when Tarantino and Rodriguez did that double feature? Looks very similar. Sort of a pulpy front cover. You can flip it over and turn it upside down and read the second novel. They're packaged together, sort of a grindhouse double feature. All right, so keep an eye out for those. Any of them could be your next favorite read. All right, this week's feature is about Elmore Leonard. If you're a fan of crime fiction, few names loom larger than Elmore Leonard, at least in the last 50 years. The master of lean dialogue, offbeat criminals, and stories that snap with style, Leonard was every writer's favorite writer. And now a fresh profile in the July issue of The New Yorker, drawn from the newly released biography Cooler Than Cool, awesome title, reminds us why Leonard's influence still crackles through books, films, and television today, despite being almost or over now 10 years since his death. Let's dig into what the profile reveals, what the biography adds to his legacy, and why Leonard remains the gold standard for crime writers everywhere. Leonard was born in New Orleans in 1925, but had a sort of restless, nomadic childhood before the family finally settled in Detroit, the city that would become his literary home. During the war, he served in the Seabees, World War II that is. He served in the Seabees, became a decorated veteran, and after the service, he graduated from the University of Detroit in 1950, married, and by 1955 had 3 young children. He worked at an advertising agency by day, but got up at 5 a.m. every morning to write for 2 hours before even allowing himself a cup of coffee. 2 pages, no matter what. Then he was off to Mass, and then to his day job at the office. I envy that kind of discipline. It's sort of almost heroic in its quiet determination. And it paid off. Leonard started with Westerns. It's pretty well known. Pulp magazines with names like Exciting Western couldn't get enough of his cowboy stories. But he really didn't click or break through into the mainstream until 1969 with The Big Bounce, his first modern novel. Suddenly, his characters weren't just talking and twanging, they were alive. You could practically taste the beer they were drinking and feel the weight of their mistakes. Now, what made Leonard special wasn't just his ear for dialogue, though honestly, the man could have been a court stenographer in another life. It was his generosity towards his characters. Even his criminals and con artists felt human, flawed, in ways that you had to root for despite yourself. Now, Leonard battled his own demons as well, particularly with alcohol. Definitely took a toll on his personal life, but he did manage to quit for good in 1977 at the age of 51, and that sobriety gave him clarity that would fuel decades more of his brilliant work. Hollywood kept trying to capture that magic on screen, his magic, but there was many mixed results. I still don't think they've made a good version of The Big Bounce despite multiple tries. He'd often get calls from Clint Eastwood or Steve McQueen while his kids eavesdropped downstairs. Now, the irony in all this, as Hollywood struggled, was that when he did finally break through, he got his sweet revenge in Get Shorty, a novel about a loan shark who swims into the movie business. It became the hit film adaptation that had eluded Leonard for years. Leonard wrote over 40 novels before his death in 2013, each one a masterclass in making the extraordinary ordinary. Now, 2 final anecdotes I thought were worth sharing from the profile. At age 84, he was still surprising people. Like when he flew to a book festival with 7 joints hidden in a cigarette pack, much to his son's terror. Now, the TSA didn't find them, and his son breathed a sigh of relief. But maybe the most Leonard moment of all was a letter he wrote to his granddaughter heading out to Los Angeles. Really, all you have to do is be yourself. Be cool. Go with God. Grandfather Elmore. Awesome. A great writer who was a genuinely good person? In Leonard's world, that wasn't fiction. It was just life. Perfectly observed and generously shared. Now, if you've never read Leonard or want to dive deeper into his work, here are his 5 essential crime novels. or at least what I believe are his 5 essential crime novels. Let's start with number 5, LaBrava from 1983. This is the book that really pushed Leonard more into the mainstream. The big bounce, 15 years earlier, moved him into the modern era for his fiction, but this one really made him famous. An ex-Secret Service agent turned photographer gets tangled up with a former movie star and her dangerous past. Number 4, try Glitz, a couple years later, 1985. Atlantic City sleaze meets Miami Beach corruption. Number 3, Rum Punch. This also might be my favorite adaptation of Leonard's. This was the novel that Tarantino turned into Jackie Brown. Flight attendant Jackie Burke, caught between criminals and cops with Leonard's signature moral complexity. Number 2, okay, maybe it's between Out of Sight and Jackie Brown for best adaptation, the Soderbergh adaptation. But the book, also excellent. Number 2 on my list, a bank robber and a federal marshal falling for each other in the trunk of a car. Sounds ridiculous and absolutely real. Finally, number 1, it has to be Get Shorty, the one that Hollywood finally did get right, as I mentioned. Chili Palmer, one of his best characters, the loan shark turned movie producer, navigating the absurdities of the film business with perfect Leonard wit. All right, finally, quickly, before we wrap up, what I'm reading and watching. Right now, I'm about a third of the way through the second Kurt Argento book, Hardtown. So early days, but it's continuing the positive vibes that I took from Plantinga's debut, The Ascent. I think this is one of those night-errant thriller series that could have some legs. On audio, I'm listening to Alex North's latest serial killer thriller, The Man Made of Smoke. And finally, I just wrapped up watching Murderbot, a little behind on that one, on Apple TV, based on the Martha Wells series of novels. A little sci-fi, more than crime fiction. But I really enjoyed sort of the quirky whipsaw tone, and I really enjoyed the 30 minutes or less runtime for each episode. I think a lot of times these streaming services stretch out some of the source material. There's some filler episodes, some fluff, but I thought the 10 episodes here were just the perfect length and the perfect amount of time to tell the story. All right, that's it for this week. Let me leave you with this week's question. Did you agree with my Dutch picks? What is your favorite Elmore Leonard movie or television adaptation? Shoot me your picks, either book or movie. I'd love to feature some listener favorites in a future episode. You can email me at mike@mikedonahuebooks.com. That's DONOHUE, mikedonahuebooks.com. Or find me on Blue Sky at mikedmystery.bsky.social or on Instagram at mikedonahuebooks. This has been Unreliable Sources. I'm Mike Donohue. Thanks for listening. Until next time, stay sharp, follow the clues, and don't trust anyone who skips to the end.